Welcome to another episode of Skatepark Showcase. Today I am at the Wadsworth Skate Park in Flagler Beach, Florida. I'm currently battling an ankle injury, so I'm not going to be doing a ton of skating, which is unfortunate because there is a ton of stuff out here. Let's check it out. I must say this is a pretty interesting park, and I'm really stoked that I was able to come out here because I actually just came from another park about 8 miles away. Luckily, there's lights out here, so I was able to skate it. So Flagler Beach is on the east coast of Florida and sits right in between Daytona and St. Augustine. I think this beach probably gets talked about a little bit less than others just because it's not as big, but they do have a pretty decent skate park. So let's get right into it. When you first get here and see the park, you'll notice that it's very spacious and there are a lot of obstacles to skate. They've managed to fit a ton of stuff in this area and it doesn't feel too jumbled. There's a lot of square footage for them to fit everything as well. It's all pretty evenly laid out, and though some of it might be a bit sporadic, it doesn't screw up the flow. So that brings us to the layout. I would break this down into 3 different sections. There is the small street course, the large street course, and a whole lot of flat ground obstacles, mostly in between those 2 sections, but also on the edges as well. So let's dive into the flat ground stuff first. There's a ton of different types of flat ground stuff. On the outer edges, you've got a long, round, flat bar, and then this bench that's in the shape of a skateboard. I've come across those once or twice before. On the opposite edge, there's also a really long, square, kinked rail, and right in the middle is when you just have a large culmination of street objects. First, the largest thing is a manual pad grind box, and it's pretty cool. I was able to do a couple of things despite my ankle. The manual pad is, in my opinion, the perfect height, and it's a really good solid length. There are also ledges on both sides of the manual pad that are super easy to grind because everything's metal out here. And on the opposite side, there's a bank to flat to bank that raises you up a little bit, that makes it a little bit easier to get on those grind ledges. Definitely good for beginners. There is a Y rail, which is what I call it. I've actually come across that one other time before, and that was at another park in Florida. I didn't skate it today, but I did get some footage on it when I was at that other park, so I'll show a little bit of that. It's definitely fun to experiment on. It's very unique. I don't know if many people would skate it, but if you're a creative type of skater and like doing grinds, it's definitely a fun obstacle to try things on. There's this very odd bump thing to quarter pipe. I don't know what it is or why it exists. There's no coping on the top and the bump just kind of throws you off a little bit, but I mean, it's something different and fun and quirky, I guess. There's a really long manual pad. Basically, it's 2 manual pad grind boxes put together that are each 8 feet long. I always love those because the tops are usually very, very smooth, so it's nice to get a good manual on. There's also a grind ledge that's made out of the same material as the manual pads. Those are always really fun to skate and they slide really well. You never have to wax them. Lastly is the most unique thing I think is out here. I'm not even sure what it's called, but I'm just gonna call it a U ledge because it's in the shape of a U. It's basically 2 skinny grind ledges right next to each other, and then at one end, it's squared off. So you can hit it normally, or you can hit it and pop before you get to that edge that would block your wheels otherwise. I'm sure they do exist in other parks because this is an ARC skate park, American Ramp Company, and lately I've been seeing some pretty unique stuff by them. So now let's head on over to the small street section. On one side, there is a nice and tall and wide bank that's super fun to skate and you can get plenty of speed off of it. The opposite side has a 5-foot quarter pipe that's also pretty wide. 5 feet is a really good height for getting a lot of speed, so it definitely does that. The fun box in the middle is comprised of a really mellow spine. There's no coping at the top of the spine, so it's a little bit weird. There's nothing to really bonk off of. Normally spines do have coping on them, but instead this one's just flattened off and there's a kind of a wide flat on the top, but it's super mellow and easy to skate. Next to that is a really solid and wide A-frame that has both a square rail and a round rail on it. I didn't hit the rails because I'm not feeling it with the ankle, but that A-frame is really solid and really easy to skate, great for beginners. Right next to that is a bank to flat to stair set. I didn't skate that either, but it looks like that bank is really mellow and long, and the flat is a decent length to get prepared to hit the stair set. It's also a pretty low impact stair set. So that brings us to the last thing left, which is the large street section. Now, unfortunately, it was almost dark when I got here. I started skating all the smaller stuff as soon as I got out here. It's great that this park is open late, but at night in Florida, there's a lot of condensation. And before I even really got to skate the big section, some condensation built up pretty badly. I was able to skate the mini ramp before it got too wet and the hip before it got too wet, but everything else, it was very wet, so I just kind of rode around on some of it and just did a couple of like very, very simple tricks. Since I was able to skate it, let's talk about the mini ramp first. The mini ramp is pretty unique, but it does have its flaws. One of the cool things about it is that it has a spine connected to it on one side, so you can flow in and out of the ramp from different sections of the park pretty easily. I have two complaints about the mini ramp. Number one, the flat is not very long. It's pretty short, so you have to get set up really quickly. It will take some time to get used to if you're used to mini ramps that have a nice, decent, long flat. And secondly, the paint is chipping up. There's a lot of bare metal on there, and it can be really slippery and dangerous. The paint's coming up on a lot of areas of the park, but the mini ramp is by far in the worst condition. Other than that, the transition's really nice. It's 4 feet tall. The side without the spine is, I believe, 16 feet wide. So it's definitely great for advanced skaters and beginning skaters. Next, we'll talk about the hip a little bit because I was actually able to skate that before it got too wet. There's a hip kind of tucked off in the corner, and it's nice and mellow and really easy to skate. I had a blast on it and was able to do more on it than I thought I'd be able to with my ankle. So the rest of the big street section consists of a fun box in the middle and then a section on the left and the right flowing into it. So on one side, you have a nice tall bank. I believe it's about 5 foot, and then right next to that bank is another 5 foot quarter pipe. There is some issues with that quarter pipe. At the bottom, the metal is starting to come apart, and you can audibly hear it, and you can definitely feel it when you hit it. It does jolt you a little bit, so you have to be careful, and eventually it is gonna come apart, and it's gonna be unskateable. The other side is pretty unique. There's again another quarter pipe on the left side that's 5 feet tall, and then to the right of that is a bank to flat to quarter pipe, which is pretty unique. You don't see that very often. One complaint is that the quarter pipe at the top does not have any coping, which is kind of strange to me, but it's solid. So the quarter pipe also goes into a flat and then a stair set. There really just isn't much time to get set up, so I would imagine not many people skate it. I personally probably wouldn't. And finally, in the center, you have the fun box. The fun box is pretty big. It looks like a lot of fun to skate. I was really only able to do a couple of things on the hip, and that was it because it was very, very wet. And as we get to wrapping up the episode, the lights just cut out on me. Pretty crazy. So I asked some of the guys earlier today that were out here what time they thought the lights shut off, because I saw online that the park is open until 11 o'clock at night. And they told me probably somewhere around 10. It's now 10:27 and the lights just cut off. So now you know that these lights cut off at 10:27 until daylight savings time, and then it'll be an hour difference. All in all, a really solid park. I really wish I could have skated a little bit more. I wish my ankle felt better and that the ramps didn't get so wet, but that's just the way it goes. It's in a nice little area. It's not far from the beach. They do have bathrooms out here. No helmets are required, no waiver, nothing like that. You can just pull up and skate until 10:27 at night. Thanks for checking out another episode of Skatepark Showcase. I'm actually ending a road trip right now. This is my final day. I've been on the road for 4.5 days. I was gonna go another day longer, but because of my ankle injury, I'm headed home. I wanna give a huge shout out to all of my Patreon supporters. It's because of supporters like you that I'm able to go on these trips and cover these parks. So thank you so much. If you would like to donate, just go to patreon.com/parksharks. As little as $1 can go a really, really long way. And if you can't donate but want to help out in other ways, you absolutely can. You can like this video, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel so you know when future videos come out, but most importantly, share it with your friends so they'll know about the show as well. Since this is my final stop on my road trip, I'm actually dropping a documentary about this road trip. It documents the filming of this episode and the previous 5 episodes. I did the same thing last year for a road trip, and I think it turned out pretty good. You get to see all the behind the scenes, the ups and the downs, the things that happen that I don't expect, and then obviously random injuries like this. It gets pretty wild. Thanks for checking out another episode of Skatepark Showcase. Here's what's coming up next.